Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Keith, and welcome to my preview of UFC 264, Poirier versus McGregor 3. There is something about a Conor McGregor fight that seems to get everybody excited. I mean, think about it. The UFC hosts events every single week, but it's only when a Conor McGregor fight takes the stage when you hear the conversation. Are you watching the fights this weekend? What are you doing for the fights this weekend? Don't get me wrong, the UFC has a huge fan base, but that fan base seems to triple when McGregor takes center stage. Now, this weekend is going to be a very interesting fight for Conor McGregor. It is the third time he's fighting Dustin Poirier. Conor beat Poirier several years ago in their first fight. Poirier got the better of McGregor in January, and this is going to be the one to settle the score. Now, after beating McGregor in January, Poirier had the option of fighting for the lightweight championship. He decided not to, and why wouldn't he? The payday that he'll be getting for fighting McGregor would be 4 times that of what it would have been if he had fought for the title. I think the UFC needs to look into their pay structure. Anyways, coming into this fight, though, there doesn't seem to be the jovial, friendly spirit that we saw at the second fight in January. No, the trash talking is on full point at this time, most of it generated by McGregor. Now, there's a lot of back and forth that's gone on between these two, but sparing you the details, the simple fact is I think that McGregor, after taking the loss, realized he needed to reevaluate. So, coming into this fight, you think to yourself, well, what is it that makes Conor McGregor such a star? I think it's several things. I think one of the things that makes McGregor such a star is the fact that he trash talks like nobody else, and trash talk sells. When you're seeing people who just genuinely don't like each other and there's a certain amount of venom between them, you want to tune in. It's not so much when it's like, hey, I really like you, hey, I respect you, and that's great, and I love that, but that's not really what the UFC does. I mean, the UFC has somewhat taken from a WWE model in terms of generate that level of buzz, and if you want to see what happens, you need to buy the pay-per-view. Now, another thing that makes McGregor so great is that he's so smart from a business standpoint. He kind of lays out exactly what he wants to do from a business standpoint, not just in terms of his other projects like his Proper 12 whiskey, but I mean business within the UFC, understanding how to generate interest, how to generate excitement, how to call out different opponents. There's just been something about that, and also his work ethic. Whereas a lot of fighters pull out of fights, knock on wood, McGregor hasn't been one of those people to do that. And I think the other thing that makes McGregor so entertaining is just the fact that he's a fantastic fighter. I mean, he had a murderer's row of knockouts for a long time where he was just dropping people left, right, and center. And I talked about the trash talking. I mean, he fought a guy several years ago, Jose Aldo, who at the time was known as the best pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC. It was a foregone conclusion that Jose Aldo was going to beat McGregor because he was just so talented. But McGregor got in Jose Aldo's head. And even though Jose Aldo didn't speak English, Conor learned how to trash talk him in his native Portuguese. What ended up happening when they fought? Well, Jose Aldo threw all of his training and preparation out the window, charged after McGregor, and got knocked out in the first 13 seconds. It's moments like that that have generated such superstardom around McGregor to the point where he was able to generate a $100 million payday when he fought Floyd Mayweather. Now, one of the things that I find a little unfair towards McGregor is he's constantly asked the question of, why are you here, Conor? You've got so much money. Why are you back fighting? Which is interesting, and it's something that a lot of athletes get asked. Tom Brady gets asked that every year. But nobody really goes and asks Tim Cook, hey, Tim Cook, when are you going to stop making iPhones? Hey, Zuckerberg, when are you going to be done with this whole Facebook thing? And I say that because I don't necessarily know that McGregor looks at himself as an athlete as much as he looks at himself as a business. Anyways, coming into this fight, yes, there's a lot of attention around McGregor. Yes, there's a lot of fandom. But at the end of the day, he has to get into an octagon and get the job done. And this is where it shifts. And I think all of the pressure is on Conor McGregor. This is very much a no-lose situation for Dustin Poirier, in my opinion. If Dustin Poirier loses this fight, I suspect he'll do what he normally does after his few losses, which is dust himself off and get back in the octagon. But if McGregor loses, then the conversation shifts even more so to, Conor, are you done? Do you want to come back? Do you still want to do this? Which is somewhat unfair. When you think about it, right now, Conor McGregor only has 5 losses in his mixed martial arts career. There are many fighters in the UFC who have many more losses than that, and they're not being asked about the "are you done" talk. The current light heavyweight champion of the world, Jan Blachowicz, has double-digit losses. But no one's putting a microphone in his face and saying, Jan, are you about done with this sport? Now, Conor says that he's focused and he says that he's dialed in and he's ready to go. I'm not sure about that. We'll find out on Saturday. I know that at the beginning of this week, if you'd asked me who's going to win this fight, I would have said 100% Dustin Poirier. Then as I started watching some of the interviews, I thought to myself, well, maybe Conor is a little more dialed in. But after watching the press conference, I'm kind of leaning back towards Poirier. Reason being is that the mental warfare that McGregor has so adequately used against his opponents doesn't seem to be working against Poirier. Poirier doesn't seem to care. And it reminds me of when McGregor was fighting Khabib Nurmagomedov, whereas Nurmagomedov just didn't care either. And I also look at Conor's behavior through the press conference. This is a guy who's very, very unwound, very upset, very, very angry. He doesn't seem to be focused. Now, he could completely surprise me and go in and start Dustin Poirier in the first round. It could happen. He definitely has the skills to do it. This is one of those fights, like I said, it's a bit of a toss-up. If I'm going with my heart on this fight, Conor McGregor all day. And why wouldn't it be? The sport is much more entertaining with McGregor in it than him not in it. If McGregor wins, there's so many opportunities for him. Fighting for the lightweight championship against Charles Oliveira, perhaps moving up to take on Kamaru Usman for the welterweight championship. He's flirted with the idea of boxing Manny Pacquiao. But if he loses, it seems that if he was to continue, the only fight that seems to be completely blatantly obvious would be a trilogy fight against Nate Diaz. Now, if McGregor wins, I suspect that his next fight could very well be in the football stadium in Las Vegas. They could sell that out easily. Now, if Poirier wins, then obviously his next fight will also be for the lightweight championship, but respectfully, it wouldn't be in a football stadium. Poirier is a fantastic fighter, but doesn't generate that level of interest. Quite frankly, nobody in the UFC really does next to McGregor. So if you're the UFC, I'm sure silently they're hoping that McGregor wins against Dustin Poirier. I'm just not convinced he will. I'll be tuning in. I'm very curious, though. What do you guys think? Who is your pick in the fight between Poirier and McGregor? I would love to hear it. Thanks so much for checking this out. Until next time, thanks for your time.